I saw the headline for this story, and I was like, oh, it involves a Ten Commandments monument on public property. I know the gist of the story before I even read it, right? And then I dug deeper into the weeds of the story, and it just got more and more insane. And I'm so excited to share those details with you, okay? So this is happening in Jefferson County, Illinois. It's like the middle of Illinois, very rural area. But here's what happened. Last August, the sheriff in Jefferson County installed this monument inside the courthouse. That is a 6-foot tall, mostly granite Ten Commandments plaque. And I don't know if you could see this on here. I will try to zoom in for you. Not only does it have the Ten Commandments or a version of the Ten Commandments on it, at the very bottom of the plaque, do you see the thing at the very, very bottom? That is a quotation from Proverbs. And what does that say? It says, when justice is done, it is a joy to the righteous, but terror to the evildoers. Proverbs 21:15. And the thing about that is, first of all, there's a game I like to play. It's called Anytime a Christian Cites a Bible Verse, go to the chapter they just mentioned and look around that verse, because there's probably something insane that they are not telling you. And so I went to chapter 21, verse 15 in Proverbs, and guess what I found a few verses later? Better to live in a desert than with a quarrelsome and nagging wife. Same chapter. That's what they wanted to quote on the Ten Commandments plaque. Anyway, this also, going back to this picture for a second, this is not the Ten Commandments monument you may have seen outside state legislatures, outside of public schools. Sometimes they want to put them in classrooms. This is not the version you see there. This is like a kind of simplified version of the Ten Commandments. Like they had to make this from scratch. It's not like this template's lying around there. So that's weird as well. I don't like the spacing. I know they're trying to get like Commandments 1 and 6 to match up and 2 and 7, but also what that ends up looking like is there's a huge gap between number 8 and 9, number 4 and 5. I don't like the design of this thing. It's ugly. That's my point. But also the bigger issue, why are they putting this up at all? They clearly did this last year. It's not like this monument had been in the building for like 100 years and now they're claiming it's tradition so we can keep it up forever. No, they decided to put this in last year. You can't even argue that it's tradition anymore. And now what does the Supreme Court say about all of this? 50 years ago, in a case called Stone v. Graham, they basically said you can't have a standalone Ten Commandments monument. And in 2005, they issued a ruling. They said there's a Ten Commandments monument outside a Kentucky courthouse by itself. That is clearly illegal because it's a promotion of religion. And at that same time, they said there's another Ten Commandments monument outside the Texas Capitol, but there's a bunch of displays about like law over time. So technically, yeah, it's a Christian monument, but it's in the context of something secular, so we will allow it. But the basic thing the Supreme Court has said for years is if it's a standalone Ten Commandments monument, the answer is no, you're not allowed to do that. So that's the precedent we are working under. And what is this? In this courthouse, it is a standalone Ten Commandments monument. Clearly illegal, clearly unconstitutional. Okay, so when a local newspaper spoke with Jeff Bullard, who is the sheriff who did this, I'm going to share with you this article that was in a local newspaper. It's behind a paywall, so this is a PDF, so it's hard to zoom in here. But look at the top paragraph right now. Jefferson County Sheriff Jeff Bullard, who is the custodian of the local courthouse, said the origins of the monument project date back to the 2022 U.S. Supreme Court case in Kennedy v. Bremerton, which was litigated by First Liberty Institute. That's the high school football coach who wanted to pray at midfield because he really needed attention because no one loves him. This sheriff is saying, well, remember that football coach? Yeah, therefore I can put the Ten Commandments up. He said, and that's, by the way, that's all he said. That decision overturned the 1971 SCOTUS decision of Lemon v. Kurtzman. Basically, what the Supreme Court did in that Kennedy case is they said, look, we used to have a set of rules for whether something violates church-state separation and is illegal. And the Kennedy case said that set of rules is no longer in effect. But all that means is you can't use that set of rules to say if something violates church-state separation or establishment of religion. There are a million other ways you could still prove that or say that something violates the First Amendment. This idiot seems to think, hey, they got rid of the Lemon test, therefore there's no more church-state separation. I can do what I want. That's not how it works. This man is dumb. But that's what he said. In case you're wondering, where did he go? Did I lose him? Here's the sheriff. Here's the sheriff. This is the guy who's like, I know the law. The law says church-state separation doesn't exist because I've never read the First Amendment. So, in a letter at the time, the Freedom from Religion Foundation sent a letter to the county commissioners, and they're like, what the hell are you people doing in Jefferson County? And look at this part at the bottom of this page. The monument is not part of Jefferson County's longstanding history because the monument was erected less than a week ago. This doesn't even come close to the so-called history and tradition test, which was discussed in Kennedy. Basically saying, you guys don't have any legs to stand on here. What are you doing? So they wrote this letter to the county commissioners saying, take down your stupid ass monument because there's no legal standing that's going to allow this to happen. And what made matters worse is that when you found out how they installed it, it got even crazier. Because guess how they did it? Do you remember Roy Moore, the Alabama Senate candidate who was mired in scandal because he molested little girls? In like 2001, Roy Moore was the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. And he decided to install a Ten Commandments monument in the state courthouse. And he knew it was illegal, so he did it in the middle of the night when no one was looking. And then he's like, you can't take it away from me now. It's really hard to do. And then they got rid of it, and they got rid of him. And then he became Chief Justice again later, and it's Alabama. What do you expect? But like Bullard, this sheriff in Jefferson County, he did the same thing. He erected it basically when no one was in the building. And they didn't know all this. We didn't know all this until much later after it was already installed. Here's what happened. This is according to legal documents later. In March of 2024, a group of several interested Jefferson County churches and private individuals came forward to provide the financial support for this. Actually, I do have that right here. Let me share this with you so I'm not just reading it. This is at the top of this news article. Came forward to provide the financial support needed to have the monument placed at the local courthouse. The project was completed and delivered by some company. They, along with the towing company, did an outstanding job of creating and installing it, which took place Friday morning on this day. A private ceremony unveiling the new monument took place on Sunday, August 25th. The courthouse is closed on Sunday, obviously. So this dude basically installed it on a day and unveiled it on a day no one was in the building because he's shady and he knows what he's doing is wrong. So where are we at right now? It's illegal to begin with. It has nothing to do with the county's heritage or history. It has a friggin' Bible quote at the bottom of the base in case you need any reminder that they are promoting Christianity. And what's the point? The point of this, it sends a message that the Christian rule book and a very specific brand of Christianity overrides the Constitution and state law. And if you walk into their courthouse and if you are not a Christian, you are a second-class citizen there. That's the message this thing sends. And obviously, we don't even need to go through the 10 Commandments, but like the first 4 are not laws. They're just promotions of Christianity. So what is the whole point of the 10 Commandments when like there might be 2 good ones and 4 pointless ones and 4 really pointless ones? You know what I mean? So this is obviously promotion of Christianity. It's religious intolerance. It is exclusion. And then guess what the commissioners did with the letter the Freedom from Religion Foundation sent to them? Nothing. They never responded to it. So they installed this thing in August of last year. What happened in the months to follow? Well, after it was installed and people started seeing it, people started asking questions. And then the sheriff is like, oh, hey, lawyers that I know, right-wing crazy lawyers that I know, I did this thing. I'm okay, right? And even the right-wing legal groups are like, my dude, what have you done? You totally cannot do this. But one of the lawyers he talked to said you should move this thing outside the building. And you should also make a couple other changes. So what did the sheriff do? He decided to move that plaque outside the building. He really did that. He also, I don't know if you could see this on here, at the very bottom of that plaque, he put up a steel bar to cover up the Bible verse so no one would see it anymore. He thinks that if he moves this thing outside the building and covers up the Bible verse, everything is fine now. That is not true. That is not how anything works. Okay, so now everyone sees you just have a standalone Ten Commandments monument outside the courthouse. Now all the church-state separation groups, they tried to send him a warning letter. No one responded. This has been in the news now for months. They clearly are not taking it down. So this week, they filed a lawsuit. The Freedom from Religion Foundation, the ACLU of Illinois, ACLU National, they have sued the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners for allowing this to happen. And they filed it in a state circuit court. And here's the thing. So far, as I was reading this and talking to you about it, I've told versions of this story before because this happens in a lot of states. When I read the lawsuit, oh my God, the details they have access to because they did discovery. They did the FOIA requests. They did the FOIA request, not discovery. But they got information about how this came to be, and some of this stuff is wild. For example, the lawsuit says that Bullard used official government resources, channels, and personnel to promote, finance, and install the monument. For example, the sheriff sent out a donation pledge form to potential donors, and it said donations should go to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office 10 Commandments Project for 2024. Like, he's not even trying to make this a private thing. It's very much my office is doing this. He also told donors to make checks out to the JCSO, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office Chaplaincy Division, still within the job, or they could deposit it in the government account for the Sheriff's Office Chaplaincy Division. Oh, if you want to mail a check, just send it to me in the Sheriff's Office. And if you want to drop off a physical check, you could also do it at my place of work. So he is not doing this as a private citizen. He's very much saying, this is part of my job and what I do. That's not great. How much money did he raise? He raised over $10,000, and the monument cost about $10,000. By the way, $1,000 came from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office chaplains. So like a group within the state government, the county government, helped pay for the Christian monument. That's disturbing. What else? When he spoke to the companies that were constructing the monument, he did not do it in a private capacity. He literally signed his messages, Sheriff. Like, he's the dumbest dude to be doing all this out in the open. And when the people gave him donations, even they were like, we're so glad you're promoting Christianity. Check this out. This is from a church that he asked for money. Look at this. Enclosed is a check for $500 for the 10 Commandments project for the courthouse. Our church feels this is a project that deserves our support and encouragement. We are thankful to have a sheriff who not only has biblical beliefs, but is also willing to stand for those beliefs in such a great way. And then look at this. Our prayer is that this will not only serve as a symbol of what God's standard for living is, but that this will also serve as a missions opportunity to point people to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Even the church is like, we're glad you're promoting Christianity with this monument, which is like the one thing you are not supposed to say publicly about this stuff. So that's another dumb thing these people are doing. What else? The lawsuit also says Bullard's office totally knew this would be a problem. His deputy sheriff wrote an email to employees where they're talking about stuff they all got to get done. And look at this. He's like, all right, what do we got to do about the budget? Here's some stuff we got to do about the budget. What do we do about disaster readiness? Here's some stuff we should do about that. What about the courthouse? Hey, large granite 10 commandments will be placed in the courthouse. If anyone asks, it was paid for through donations, not from the office, right? And then he says, the Supreme Court overturned the separation of church and state. No, it did not. And then he says, any complaints, refer them to the sheriff. Like, all of these people in the office know what they're doing is illegal, and they're so bad at covering it up, and they're making up stuff that they could say to the public. It's wild. And maybe the most damning thing about all this is, get this, he raised about $10,000 in donations. The monument cost $10,000. He only had like a couple $100 left over. But in that time, remember, it was inside the building and then he had to move it outside. Well, guess what? Relocating a monument of that size outside the building and creating a base for it to lie on, that costs money. How much money? About $5,000. And he didn't have that money. So where is he getting the roughly $5,000 he needs to relocate the Christian monument from inside the building to outside the building? Look at what he said in this email here. This is an email to one of the companies that is doing the work. Look at that last line. We will pay for this from the Chirper Fund. Thanks, everyone. What is the Chirper Fund? The Chirper Fund is a fund that the county has, a public fund for people who are in jail who cannot afford to make phone calls outside the jail because they don't have the money for a phone plan or something like that. Well, the county says, don't worry, we have a little bit of money that we save so that, you can be human and talk to a human. And so we have some money for you to contact the outside world. And this sheriff is like, I'll take that money. We're not using it for anything useful. So he used about $5,000 in that fund to do that. One other thing this guy also said is that when, how he unveiled the monument inside the building on a Sunday, he invited donors to come celebrate with him. He told all of them, keep this private. No news or social media. He explicitly said that in his email to donors. And then he got on-duty cops to act as bouncers and make sure no one else got in the building because he didn't want anyone to see this. So this is also funny. This is from the lawsuit. At some point, the county commissioners, I think it's installed at this point, the county's lawyer is like, he must have walked into the courthouse, sees that. He's like, the hell did you people do? Look at this from the lawsuit, because this is what FFRF and all those groups are saying. Number 66. Featherston is the name of the county lawyer. Featherston advised he had consulted 4 lawyers, all of whom indicated that the monument raised serious legal concerns, with the best advice from them being, hope you're insured. The county lawyer expressed frustration that he was not consulted before the monument was erected and noted that his analysis doesn't change based on the monument being moved outside. He's like, this thing is illegal. What are you people doing? I'm going to get in trouble here. Featherston also provided written legal advice to the board discussing the monument's legality as well as its lack of government function. And when they say discussing the monument's legality, the lawyer is saying it's illegal. If you want to have this thing outside, you need to put shit around it right now. This is also funny. Featherston identified several factors that could weigh against the monument's legality, noting that an inconspicuous tiny monument appears safer than a large prominent one. Why didn't you do a small little paper one? And then he said having religious donors, because you went to churches to ask for donations and they gave it to you, it undermines the argument that the monument is non-religious. He also noted that taken by themselves, the symbolism of the 10 Commandments is largely understood to be religious. Yeah, obviously. I love this attorney because he works for the dumbest people. After hearing from Featherston, the board voted on a proposal to retain the monument on the courthouse lawn, with 6 of the present 8 members voting in favor of keeping it and 2 abstaining. So the lawyer's like, what are you doing? All of this is illegal. What have you done? And the whole board minus 2 people who weren't really there, are like, yeah, we're fine with it. We don't care what you have to say. Who the hell are you? He's like, I'm the lawyer. And everyone's like, we don't care what you have to say. In fact, this is also in the lawsuit. One of the board members apparently said, I'm voting to keep this monument up, and I'm willing to roll the dice because the board gets sued all the time. So he just wants this to go to court, where he will probably lose because he's like, whatever, we get sued. What's another lawsuit? Like, not every lawsuit has merit. This one is kind of amazing. And the plaintiffs in this case are several Jefferson County residents. There's a Christian pastor who says this display doesn't belong near the courthouse. He says the monument demeans and trivializes a holy text by turning it into a lawn decoration. There's another plaintiff who's Catholic who objects to the version of the commandments being used since it doesn't line up with his beliefs, and the version that is being used has been used in the past, he says, to condemn Catholic religious practices. There's an atheist in there as well who shouldn't have to look at this. Like, even if the sheriff and the county board did everything by the book and pretended this is about honoring our nation's history, they would still have an uphill climb, since trying to convince a judge that this standalone Ten Commandments monument should be allowed to stay up. But when you look at everything they actually said and did, and which we have documentation for, there's no getting around the fact that they want to promote Christianity. They were told they were promoting Christianity. They did this in the context of their government jobs, and it's clearly a government promotion of religion. So, like, if I were them, and clearly they're not listening to good advice here, they should just take the loss, take down the monument before their eventual legal bills start piling up. That's what I would do because, I don't know, I want to be responsible if I'm a government official. But given the way they have ignored all the good advice up to this point, they're totally not going to do that. They're going to fight this thing until they lose. And when they lose, it's the taxpayers in their county who are the ones who are going to have to foot the bill for this. I don't know what they're doing. Very dumb, though. All right, I'll stop there. What other questions we got here? It's almost like they worship the monument or something. I wish there was some set of rules we could consult about that. Yeah, like worshiping false idols, graven images, whatever. Yeah, if they ever read the monuments, they would be shocked. It looks like a gravestone. Accurate, symbolic, appropriate. For, I don't know, what exactly are they burying in this county? Their dignity, the laws, the Constitution. Obviously, Jesus said, make a monument, not feed the poor. I believe that is a New Testament quotation. Yeah, that's in the book of Matthew right there. He said, make me all the 10 Commandments monuments, get rid of the brown people, don't look at me, and, hurt the poor as much as possible, take away their Medicare, Medicaid, all of it. So they're just wasting more money on something they will probably have to get rid of. This dude really needs to be sued, including giving money back to the prison call fund. I am curious what becomes of that. Like, okay, he took $5,000 from one earmarked set of money. Is the county going to replace that? I don't know how they use it, but it's kind of wild that he would just be allowed to take that money.